So good evening, everyone. And tonight we will be discussing about grounded theory, which is one of the qualitative research methodologies and um, one of the methods or school of thoughts in doing qualitative research. Now, when we talk of grounded theory, it is actually a method which is rooted in the precepts of symbolic interactionism and was developed by two sociologists. No, these two sociologists are Glasser and Strauss. They said that grounded theory is a research method that is used to discover new dimensions of the social processes at play in people's lives. So when we look into grounded theory, it's an alternative to theory verification because in contrast to usual research methods which were designed to describe phenomenon, the primary purpose of theory or grounded theory is to develop a theory. Instead of verifying the theory, the grounded theory method is there for you to develop a substantive theory. Now, the concepts and ultimately the theories that you will discover in this method are derived directly from your data. Okay, so that's why our grounded theory is always grounded in data. And it is developed from inductive reasoning or inductive research. Okay, the concepts in this theory is grounded, meaning it's rooted in the experiences of the participants. And once key concepts or dimensions are identified, the researcher must also develop theoretical connections among these concepts, explaining what is going on in the area being studied. The grounded theory perspective values the experience of the individual and posits that theoretical processes are always at play, but are elusive to the untrained eye. It means that there is an underlying explanation on why people behave such way and why do they resort to these activities and the likes. Grounded theory, then, is a way to discover these unseen processes. The basic assumption is that the theories about people's actions or experience are about their actions and that can be discovered by observing and interacting with the social group rather than theorizing from the outside. And through keen observation and data gathering, the grounded theory researcher explores the basic psychosocial processes at play in the area of interest. A basic psychosocial process is characterized by the stages or phases that might or might not have fixed time frames. Additionally, grounded theory or the basic social processes are pervasive, variable, and account for change over a period of time. Okay. Now, grounded theory is heavily indebted to the discipline of sociology and draws the field research approach to the discovery of new knowledge. So in this type of research, it's very important that we do field work, meaning we immerse ourselves in naturalistic settings and observe what's happening around us. Now, here are the fundamental characteristics of grounded theory. There are two types of grounded theory that we will encounter. The first is what we call your Glasserian grounded theory, which is the classical grounded theory, and the Straussian grounded theory. Now, these two school of thoughts are developed by the two sociologists that I have mentioned a while ago. When we talk of Glasserian grounded theory, in terms of epistemology, there should be no preconceived ideas about the area of study. So it means that there should be no literature review, and that the researcher starts at a point of naivety or being naive or does not know something about the topic. But in Straussian grounded theory, they want to gain insight into the data through literature review. Therefore, they say that in Straussian grounded theory, they wanted to know, no, that you must know something about your data or your topic so that you'll be guided, no, in your focus, in your theoretical sampling. Okay? Now, when we talk of the research problem or the research question, in the Glossarian school of thought, they say that the researcher studies or an area of interest, and therefore using when we use research problems, they view it as a bias, and they view it as a what we call this, as a preconception and must be avoided. So they want to avoid preconception because they want to avoid any biases when you do research. However, in the Straussian grounded theory, the research question can be stated. Okay, so that's the main difference between the two. In terms of data gathering, in the Glossarian grounded theory, the participants are interviewed. Okay, it doesn't necessarily follow that all data sources are through interviews. In Glossarian grounded theory, data gathering or data can come from different types or different sources. Okay, it can be an interview, it can be an observation, and it can be through documents. So that's how Glossarian grounded theory works. Okay, and since you don't have a research problem, since you don't have a research problem that to begin with, you can start your you can develop your own memos to arrive at a main concern. Now, this main concern will serve as the topic of your choice. The main concern emerge right after you have immersed yourself to the data or to your observations. On the other hand, when we talk of Straussian grounded theory, they say that we can use unstructured interviews, okay, and observations of the participants to collect your data. Okay. So remember, in Glossarian grounded theory, everything is data. Okay, everything is data. So whatever the researcher sees, observes, notes, are all part of the data. Okay. So when we talk of the next topic in terms of data analysis, memoing is a primary data analysis form in Glossarian grounded theory. When we say memo, it's like a short note of the researcher about a certain topic that you want to focus. Okay. So in Glossarian grounded theory, you sort memos, you resort them to uncover major concepts. Okay. And then you try to connect them and find the theoretical connections among these concepts. The Straussian grounded theory, on the other hand, advocates the use of computer programs to aid you in your data analysis. Now, the results are written as a style of written up in Glossarian grounded theory. It means that all of your memos should result in a substantive theory that explains what is going on in the area of your interest. So there can be numerous theories that can be discovered from one study. It goes against the paradigm of Straussian grounded theory, wherein they say that data analysis, at a minimum, results in themes and concepts, and not necessarily come out with a theory. Okay, because they believe that not at all times when you do grounded theory, you aim to produce a theory. Sometimes you are aiming to discover behaviors, patterns of behaviors, patterns of social conduct, and the likes. Okay? Now, when do we select grounded theory as a method? We select grounded theory as a research method when we aim to develop an understanding of the behavior or of the social pattern of a certain event. Like, for example, if we want to know how our students understand a certain concept that we teach them. So the way they understand the concept can be answered by a grounded theory research. If we want to know how students communicate during online classes, okay, grounded theory can provide a framework of understanding these social processes that occurred during online classes or through the online means. So that's when we use grounded theory as a selection or as a method for research. Now, what are the elements and interpretation of the method of grounded theory or in grounded theory? We choose this as a, when we try to address a social process that needs description and explanation. Okay. Next is to identify a research question. Now, based on what school of thought that we're using in grounded theory, it may be we can or we cannot formulate a research question. Okay. So if we plan to use the Straussian grounded theory, we can choose a problem area in one of the four ways. First, it can be a suggestion of an advisor or a mentor. Number two, it can be based on the review of literature. Number three, it can be through personal or professional experience. Or number four, from doing the research itself. So according to Glossary, the grounded theory researcher does not need to specify a problem to begin a research study. So when you encounter the problem, that's the time that you identify it as the main concern. Okay. Now that you have identified or started your initial step in grounded theory, you must be taking note of theoretical sampling. When we say theoretical sampling, this is the process wherein you, as the researcher, decide what do you want to collect. Okay. What data you want to collect next after you have collected one data. Okay. This is a conscious decision to find new data sources that can clarify the researcher's understanding about the concepts that have been discovered or how the concepts are related. So it means that you are the one who will determine which data you will include in your analysis. Now, theoretical sampling is different from sampling technique in quantitative studies because theoretical sampling is looking for concepts, looking for ideas, and not merely the people. Okay, so therefore, we can say that we reach theoretical saturation if we have achieved theoretical completeness. When we say theoretical completeness, this is it means that all of the categories that we have in the substantive theory are saturated or well explained. It means that we cannot get any more new data or new dimension of that category. Okay. Now, another element of grounded theory is to reduce the preconception on the part of the researcher. It means you need to become naive of the situation. So you enter the situation with an empty mind. It means you don't know anything. And your primary task is to know that particular situation. When you conduct the grounded theory, here are some of the characteristics that you need to have or you need to practice. First is to have an outsider view, meaning you have to learn to step back and analyze each situation. You also have to recognize your own biases of a particular situation that you are studying. so that you can obtain valid and reliable data. You are also there, or you are also required to think abstractly. It means that you have to see the bigger picture of what you are observing, while also having the ability to maintain distance. You need to also have good interactional skills because you will be dealing with a lot of people when you collect your data. Now, here are some of the glossary of terms used in grounded theory. So some of the terms here are already mentioned in our discussion earlier, but I would like to emphasize on some of the points that I did not define, like memoing. When we say memoing, it means informal notes that are taken by the researcher to capture the ideas about the data, emerging theoretical codes, and relationship among the codes. Okay. Now, the theoretical sampling, I mentioned this a while ago, and the theoretical completeness, and even the saturation. When we talk of coding, this is a way of fracturing the data and then grouping it according to the concepts each incident represents. So these codes will eventually explain what is happening in the data. Now, when we talk of substantive codes, these are the names assigned to similar groups of raw data, while theoretical codes are the names given to codes that explain how the substantive codes are related to each other. The core category, or the main concern, reflects the main concern of the participants, while selective coding is a way to limit the data collection through theoretical sampling by coding for a core category. Now, what do we mean, or what ethical concerns does the grounded theory method may violate? Okay, always remember that you are gathering data here, all right, and you will get this data from people, from organizations. So therefore, you need to make sure that you will be obtaining consent, informed consent from these people, meaning they agree with you collecting data from them. Since you will be collecting a lot of data, an ethical issue may arise with the confidentiality of data. So always remember when you do grounded theory, you have to make sure that the data is safe from unauthorized access. Okay, and it's free from abuse or misuse, and also maintain the anonymity. Okay, and remove any identifiers that may incriminate the person who gave the information to you. So that ends my discussion for tonight. If you have any questions, you can always ask them anytime. Thank you very much, and I'll stop the recording.